May December, directed by Todd Haynes.
I think people are now figuring out, actually understanding like our generation, because when the story actually happened, there wasn't an accurate just knowledge of what grooming is, and now we're like the last couple years becoming more aware of how grooming actually functions in real life situations. Really oddly topical, like what's going on, with Diddy and all these other celebrities, and news and stuff with this topic.
Yeah, this movie was like maybe the most disturbing thing I've seen all year. There's more questions than there's answers for this.
Yeah.
And I think because of how subtly everything is directed and how the characters like reveal information, you really feel like a kind of haunting, like, oh, how did we get to a place where this was allowed to happen? Why wasn't the child protected? Why is everyone seemingly okay with it in their community? Not everyone, but like a good amount of people feel comfortable with the situation. Well, first of all, I think it's great. I think it's like a really good film, by the way. I'm just saying, like, in terms of like how it made me feel,
Yeah.
I think it made me feel really uncomfortable, which was the point, I think. It is based on a real life story with Mary Kay Letourneau, a teacher basically abused a child, had children with this kid, went to prison because of it. At first, when I watched it, I was like, oh, are they just like, is she like slightly older? Like, was he like in college or something? Or maybe I thought he was like maybe like a senior in high school. It still would have been equally bad. But I did not know that he was literally 12 years old. Like, you are a child.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that this ever happened. And because, again, of how it's written and how the character who plays the wife in this is Julianne Moore, she doesn't have any remorse for like what happened. Like, she very much thinks that it was consensual, it was fine, they were in love. And that just adds to the like how uncomfortable and gross you feel throughout the entire movie, because it's just like there's not even an acknowledgement that like this is like maybe there was, I'm wondering, like, was there even like a little inkling in your body that said, maybe I shouldn't have done this? No. There's nothing. She doesn't feel anything about this that's negative. She's just like, people don't understand, like, this is our lives. It's very uncomfortable when you're like 36 and your kids are graduating high school.
Yeah, the movie does a real good job of setting us during, like, they already have a daughter in college, but now the other two, their twins, are now in the process of maturing. And you see how in the interactions with him and the kids, even though they're like 16 years apart, the kids seem more mature and have experienced more things in life in comparison to their father. I love the scene at the end where the kids are graduating. He's not in the crowd. He's off this, like, watching and crying. And it's in that moment, you can see his whole character. He's coming to grips with the fact that he never got to experience what his kids are experiencing as they're maturing, and you see him like slightly break down. So I did love those two scenes. It really did put you in his mental state for this movie,
because it's not only did she like take advantage of this young child, she robbed him of his adolescence, of his teenage years, of his 20s. She robbed him of all of that. I think her comments of like, well, you had the power, is utterly befuddling to me, because like I'm just like, what do you mean? What does that mean? I don't understand. I will say Charles Melton, he actually ate this. Like, he actually ate this entire role down. And for people who don't watch Riverdale, maybe they don't know him, the fact that someone from Riverdale is actually out here just like really doing great work, I am very happy. What I'm saying is that Charles Melton, he's getting a lot of buzz for this performance because it was so heartbreaking in how he performed this person who was like just now coming to terms with the fact that everything that happened back in the day wasn't actually okay. I think he played it with so much restraint and with so much like subtlety. One, the fact that he seemed kind of unsatisfied in his relationship because he's like on Facebook Live talking to somebody else on the side and stuff. He has his little moment with Natalie Portman at the end, and he kind of can't understand like why it won't advance further. He's still frozen in time. I think that's what Charles said. He's like, he's still that 12-year-old boy. Joe is used to taking care of people. He isn't taking care of himself. and he's in this very complicated, weird relationship where he is like still a submissive, still kind of that 12-year-old kid, kind of being just being told what to do, because that's what Julianne Moore does the entire time. She just tells him what to do, like he's one of her children. And whenever she's upset, she just uses him to like calm her down. So it's not really like an equal relationship, even though they're both adults at this point. And I just want to give a shout out to the screenwriter, Sammy Birch. Great script.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. I think the angle of adding an actress who's coming to like study the character or study the woman who she's trying to play actually added like a different layer to this to make it a little bit more interesting. One, because you're not getting the information straight from Julianne Moore most of the time. You're getting it from other people in her life.
Yeah.
Which makes it, I think, slightly more objective, which makes it kind of more interesting. The casting scene, that was one of the scenes that really was like, that put me off so much, because she's like watching the tapes of these kids and she was like, well, they're not sexy enough. And I'm like, these are children. What are you talking about? Like, they need to be sexy. But that's the thing, is like, that is how people in the business view kids. It's like, if you want to market them a certain way, like, they have to have a certain look. I feel like they did the same thing with Justin Bieber, where they were like sexualizing him before he was even an adult. So it was very weird. They did that with a lot of young stars. So it was very accurate and very true. I think the film doesn't try to put a pronouncement on like how you should view them. Yeah. They don't pass judgment in terms of like in the writing and stuff, like, and how the film is presented. It's almost like, as the audience member, you can make up your mind how you feel about it. And how I feel about it is that both of them are terrible people. Natalie Portman's character especially, I felt, was incredibly manipulative.
I read somewhere about narcissism. Like, narcissistic people don't know that they're narcissistic and they believe they're fine. Like, and her behavior kind of really did mimic that.
I think they both are. Both Natalie and Julianne are narcissists. Because the lengths Natalie goes to get inside information on this person just so she can play her in a movie is on a level that is problematic and crazy and crosses every line. Both of them were like weirdly well suited together because the gals were both a hot mess.
The weirdest scene in this movie is when she like investigates the fucking pet shop and she's in the back room like simulating sex to herself. I was like, what the hell? Like, why do you need to method act that far? That wasn't necessary at all. It got really like borderline cringy. I know you're playing an actress, but you're playing an actress who's overacting as well. So that's one of those weird lines. Yeah.
I was looking for a reason of like, why did she do this? Because again, the film doesn't give you one. Like, you're not gonna figure out why.
There is one part in the movie where I did not enjoy. Is there's a musical cue that plays like 3 to 4 times in the movie that gives me mentally horror picture vibes. And this experience is kind of like a horror, but it's not. And it did not fit visually in my head. I get it's horror, but the way it flows melodically, if I'm using that musical word right, for some reason didn't fit the situation or the type of movie that it was.
The way the movie was directed, all the performances, the writing was so strong.
Yeah.
This isn't one of my top movies of the year.
I don't think this is one of like the movies that most impressed me from this year, because I've seen like a lot of good movies. But I do think it is necessary. Did you like that clip? Well, you can listen to the entire podcast because the 16mm Film Crew podcast is available on all major podcast platforms.